Hello, everyone. Just want to check everyone can hear me. If someone can pop in chat, it's all good. Just get over the obligatory IT checks quickly before we kick off. Brilliant. Okay, super. Well, look, thank you all for spending some of your lunchtime with us. The topics we're covering today are around data. And many of us are using tools like SharePoint on a daily basis, and therefore it's absolutely vital to know that we're making the most use of these tools. And we're joined today by some experts in the field. First of all, we're joined by Alex Gray from Silicon Reef. If you want to just say a few words about yourself, Alex.
Yep. Hi, everybody. Great to be here to speak to you today. So Silicon Reef are a Microsoft 365 solutions partner specializing in modern work and a speciality in all things SharePoint.
And we're joined by Mr. Gill. John, do you want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm Jonathan Gill. I'm at Wavex and I am the CIO. So I'm involved in doing the IT strategies for our customers and involved in data security and information security.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys. And if these guys can't answer your questions, I don't think anyone can. If you do have any questions throughout the webinar, there is a sort of Q&A button you should see at the top of your screen. Please use that. There is some time we've allotted at the end to go through any questions, but it's useful if you pop them in when you think of them, so we know what's coming and we can work out who's the best person to answer it. So the main topics we're covering today are the life of a document. So that's the whole sort of life cycle of after you've created it and what happens with it. An area that I'm sure is close to all of our heart, potential cost, cost savings. Also talking a bit about what is the employee experience and what other technologies can you use to help you create greater efficiencies. And some of these top technologies may be ones you already have today. So I'm now going to pass on to Alex. So over to you, Alex.
Thanks very much, Gavin. So thank you very much, everybody. And as I say, great to be here. I want to start off by just doing some background information, setting the scene for data as a topic. And what we've got here is a couple of little graphs that demonstrate the growth of data in the last 5 years. And I always remember hearing something around there's been more data created in the last decade than ever before, and a kind of exponential growth that we've seen. And a graph that I found from doing some background research was in the next, well, from 2020 to 2025, it's anticipated that the growth of data will grow from 44 zettabytes up to 175 zettabytes worth of data. Now, if like me, you had no idea what a zettabyte was, let me just quantify that a little bit by giving you, it's 1 billion terabytes, or if you actually want to physically envisage that in a room somewhere full of data, imagine 250 billion DVDs stacked on top of each other. That's the equivalent of the data growth that we're going to be seeing. So why is this important? And why do we think that data is a really important topic? Well, what we know is that the sources and the life cycle of data and the different content types that we're getting, it's grown more than ever. So we're typically used to working with Word documents, Excel documents, PowerPoint documents, and those sorts of things. But think about your social media content. A lot of that is going to be video content as well. And all of the different customer content that you've got there, maybe they're project documents, maybe they're customer marketing materials, or maybe it's your personnel data, some more operational process data that you have internally about your organization. How we structure and how we look after that data is really important, because, let me just skip the slide. Can you just, I'm just trying to move the forward one.
Do you want me to nudge it?
Yeah, I've got control, it says, but I can't see the little controls anymore.
I'll click on the button for you, Alex.
Thank you. Stop control too. Perfect. Thank you. So this is really representative of how the life cycle of data and the importance of data within an organization has really helped us become strategic decision makers based upon data. So we've gone through an era of something called the big data era, where everything was about putting data into central locations to be able to do something with it. So we've understood the value of it. And then we've brought these tools in. These could be tools like SAP, they could be tools like Power BI to visualize that data. And we understand how important it is that organizations can make decisions from the data they have access to, and uncovering those insights that the data lends itself to. So we understand that data is all about making decisions, but it's only as good as the data it has access to. So when you're putting data into something, it has to be structured in a logical order without everybody having access to everything. And what we know that is really important is that it helps us do some problem solving, and it helps your people be productive. So if I need to go and look for an HR policy to get something done, or to put something in, or find a record or information, I need to be able to access it very quickly. Just see if I can take control again, Gavin, so you don't have to keep driving for me. Yes, got that one. I think that was me that did that. Perfect. Oh no, next one. There we go. So the concept of this webinar is all about your data, because we acknowledge that data can be overwhelming. You've got so many different places of where you can store data now, whether that's in SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, your Teams chats, Outlook. If you've heard of Loop, another place where you can store your content of information, OneNote, Microsoft 365 groups, and not forgetting the place where you just take something and you stick it, your desktop or a downloads folder. So why is it important that we try and get hold of these pieces of information? Because we need to be able to structure that data to stop the inefficient ways of working, which can lead to incredibly amounts of wasted effort, time, and therefore money. Things to consider that we often don't really see in many organizations, which we're going to cover off in this session. It's more about a lack of guidance and a lack of governance and a lack of control. They're the three elements that we're going to cover off as part of this. So between John and I, we're going to be able to cover off how you can actually put in some effective strategies which really make a difference there. But let's acknowledge why this is an important problem, because people are drowning. It may be management within the business. They don't have access to data to make decisions, but it may be people who need to be able to be productive, get their work done, which can often cause frustrations among staff, and therefore reduce in productivity. But this is all about how we can actually make sure that information is accessible in a timely manner, because we know that between 10 and 30% of revenue is actually lost through data quality issues. So how did we get here? Let's just take a moment to acknowledge that if you're feeling like as an organization you are drowning, you're not alone, because no matter whether you're a small business or a large business, the feeling is likely you've gone through some legacy migrations, which is represented in these images here. You're moving from legacy platforms, perhaps, or legacy shared drives into the cloud to make sure you're getting benefit from all the offerings that cloud can give you. And as a Microsoft partner, we've helped organizations with many of their document management system migrations, whether it's into SharePoint or OneDrive and Teams effectively. But actually, what we actually see is that many people who've gone through this rapid growth or M&A process, they're putting things into the cloud as quickly as they can to realize the benefits of SharePoint search, which is brilliant. It's a really effective search, but giving access to people on them or any device to be able to access their content. One thing that doesn't really happen, which is always a promise, that's oh yeah, we're going to put it into the cloud and then we're going to go and organize it afterwards. Very few organizations, and again, I'm talking from experience of working with big organizations here, where they've shifted petabytes of data into the cloud. Very few organizations actually go back and do that tidy up. They think that the migration's done, and then they go and put it into the cloud, and they just kind of say, yep, we've done that piece, let's leave it there now. But why does that become a problem? Well, because once you go and shift all that folder content from legacy or from your file structures into the cloud, it becomes very difficult to navigate around for anybody who's looking for a piece of content. But actually, your inheritance of those permissions, and actually perhaps some oversharing is going on within your organization now because of that migration and shift into the cloud. People might not have either access to the things they need to get their job done, or there's some oversharing going on. We're going to cover off really shortly about why, again, that's a particular problem in the era that we're entering into. We also want to make sure that we're not duplicating data. So often we find that if you go back through all of your archives of content of data, there'd be a really great presentation that somebody gave 2 years ago that is buried in a folder structure, but we just can't find it, or we think that we know it's there somewhere, so we start from scratch. Again, that's wasted productivity time, wasted effort, when actually we've got 40 to 50% of something that we can reuse. And again, that's just another example of where this is costing businesses money. So what are we looking to try and achieve here? And why is now the great time to do this? So now is a great time to get your data into order, because if you've been putting this off, if you've been thinking, yeah, we've shifted to the cloud, we're in there now, everything's ready to go, and you're now thinking, but it's not costing me money anymore because I was paying for that data server and I've just put it into my Microsoft storage now. It's going to be costing you money in that wasted productivity time of helping people find that content that they're looking for, and also that frustration time. But a big reason why now is a fantastic time to be thinking about getting your data in order is because of AI. And I'm not here today to talk about the virtues of Copilot and AI. That's a whole other session. However, 83% of IT leaders are thinking about their AI strategy into 24-25. And if you've used and played around with either Copilot or ChatGPT, you'll know that it's only as good as the data it's got access to. So data is fundamentally the key element of why you need to be thinking about leveraging AI in the future, because AI will become an assistant at work. It's going to be your companion to get things done. It can be a personal productivity tool, but also a tool for your business to automate how you get things done as well. So the data that it has access to needs to be structured, and you need to have effective security governing that data, and putting in some good policies and ways of working into your organization that people understand how AI will add benefit. Now, as I said, this is not a session on AI, but this is a very good reason why you should think about data structure, data security, setting policies around their organization as well. Because if you are thinking about using Copilot in the near future, it's a fantastic reason to start thinking about that structure. So what can we do? How will you start? What do we need to think about? So one of the things that we would advocate, because data is the key element to helping you to structure your content and to be more productive, we would recommend a data audit. So start with looking at the content that's being used, or importantly, not being used. Some of the early results out of the early adopters program that Microsoft ran for Copilot, some of the feedback was, why is it returning me data from 3 or 4 years ago when I'm trying to find something? It was causing frustrations, causing feedback to Microsoft, which are now addressing through further features that they're implementing about hiding data. But actually, you should always start with doing a tidy up. Get your data into order. Permissions are a really key fundamental part of that. Taking a stance of only just enough access. That means that you only want to apply a rule that says, give people just enough access to what they need to get their job done. Don't do an oversharing. Don't give people blanket access to everything, because that can lead to finding content that perhaps you don't want them to find, but also bringing back old content as well. Governance, again, it's a really funny topic, governance. It can mean many things to many people, but for me, governance is all about keeping things simple, putting frameworks into place to help people to find that information. And governance should be supported by effective training, effective changing behaviors to how people work, to make sure that they have access to OneDrive, to Teams, that they understand what tool to use when and why. And the Microsoft tools. If you've got a Microsoft 365 subscription, setting data loss protection policies, but also using the SharePoint advanced management tools, fantastic tools that are there ready for you to be enabled and configured, which John is going to cover very shortly, that you can effectively put into action today, which will help you understand how you can protect your data through security policies. Just clicking on one. Sorry, just trying to find that mouse click there. Then one more slide. There it is. Wanted to share with you some examples of simple things that you can put into place if you haven't got this already. Here's some examples of things around what to use, when, and why. Again, you should make this personal to your organization. Every organization will have a slightly different reason for doing this. This example here just shows you your tools that you have available to you from OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint, and also Viva Engage if you're using that. What content should I put to collaborate with my team? That should be in Teams. What if I'm sharing large files internally within the organization? What about externally? What do I use for that? What tool do I use for that? So here's just an example of something you can publish very, very simply within your organization that will help you to advocate good practice, good ways of working, but really clearly communicated so people can understand where should I be going. And just another way of being able to present that. Again, OneDrive and Teams and SharePoint Engage, so your 4 core Microsoft products that you may be using. If I've got this clear front and center as part of my training, part of my onboarding within my organization, I can very clearly articulate as part of my governance and training, helping people understand what they can use, what tool they could use in what situation. Make these bespoke for your organization. And then finally, the cost benefit. So we've covered that obviously data is a really important part of any organization's planning. Help them make decisions. So effective data management is really fundamental to making sure you make key business decisions. And the benefits that you've got there on the left-hand side around productivity, so giving people simple access to find the content that they're looking for, reducing data duplication, but also you've got the less obvious things like data breaches and compliance. So if your organization is regulated or you work with organizations that are heavily regulated, any compliance breaches may obviously cost you potentially thousands of pounds as well, tens of thousands of pounds. But on the flip side of that, you've got the other employee experience things to consider. Think about the benefits that it will bring to how your teams work, how effectively they communicate with each other, being able to work faster across your organization to collaborate on content, find content quicker, but also bringing your new employees on board quicker with how you effectively get things done. Just lost the presentation, but I'm going to hand over to you, John, because I think it's your section now.
Thanks, Alex. That was really useful. Gavin, I don't know if you want to just drive because I'm scared after Alex's problems.
Happy to, John. Just give me a shout.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so in the next section, I'll just talk about that, as Alex has talked about, the controls that you can put in place around the data, because people moving from that sort of legacy environment, moving into SharePoint, it's out the box, it's very open. Microsoft want you to collaborate, they want you to share with everybody and enable all the brilliant features of SharePoint, but it's a bit of a dual-edged sword. Obviously if you can share with anyone, then there's a lot more risk to that data. But fortunately, they've built out a large tool set so that you can protect yourselves, and there is a sliding scale of how much you can protect yourself. Obviously, those businesses which don't have that much of a risk profile, you can put in some simple controls. So for example, external sharing is a big one, and these can be done at the site level, or at the organization level. So you can say, for example, anybody who we share a link with has to be registered as a guest and has to have MFA on there, for example. So you can't anonymously share a link, or you can do that person can't download that file, they can only access it through the web. So you're preventing some use cases around how they can interact with those documents. And that's a sort of basic level of external sharing. But also there is more that can be leveraged on top of that. With Enter ID is a really powerful tool, and it can do contextual access. For example, if your users are using an unmanaged device, they can only access it through the web, or if they're on a secure device, they can have full access without MFA or something like that. So you can also do assessments on those sign-ins. So you can say, oh, if you're in a foreign country, or if you have a risky, or your risk profile is elevated for whatever reason, you can then start putting in controls like blocking access or requiring further validation. So there's some simple steps you can do at a basic level to secure SharePoint and people's access to it. Going beyond that, you can protect your data leaving your organization. That's really the data loss prevention side of things. At the lower tiers, you can scan all the exit points of your data. So if anyone tries to send a credit card number, or they try and send some personal PII data, you can either block them or you can warn them they're about to do those things. So you can really start to put some small controls in place to give users an awareness of what they're doing they shouldn't be doing, or give highlight to users that their sharing is not aligned with the company policy. And then the Microsoft Purview platform, which is really their risk and compliance platform, is a really useful tool for doing a lot of things. Securing the data, ensuring that you're compliant. If you've got any regulations in place, then it's important that you are aligning to those, and so using Purview to ensure that you're keeping data or you're not keeping data. If you need to delete it, with labeling is really important. One of the aspects of that Microsoft talk about a lot is zero trust, and Alex mentioned it previously. Putting in the permissions, that just enough access, and that's a really big topic. Ensuring that when people are accessing data, they have just the right amount of access to that data, and Purview really is the key fundamental component to do that. If you want to knock it on the slide, Gavin. So, I mean, DLP is a massive topic. So there's a lot in there. So I thought I'd just delve deeper into that. I mean, reasons for having data loss prevention. Why do we need to do this? Have you got any regulations or laws? GDPR, for example. Is there any frameworks that you're working to, FCA regulated or financial regulated? Is there any business data which is sensitive, confidential design documents, etc.? Or is it personal data? Is there something in HR that you don't want to be shared, passports or any of those sorts of things? And I mean, who should be involved in these processes? Typical examples of people that need to be working with a partner or internally on these things are, security and compliance officers, business owners. It's really important. If you are running a business and you're a director, you're ultimately responsible for these things, and also IT and even the users. It's really important that there is engagement at all the levels. So in terms of what data loss prevention can do, it's really about when data is leaving the organization, putting in the controls so that people, if they're trying to share something, they don't inadvertently do it. And it can cover the whole Microsoft stack. It's not just about sharing via emails, which is a very common way people used to share attachments or any data, but now Teams, because of the collaboration that you can have with external parties, ensuring there's data loss prevention within the Teams platform is important. So now you can put in policies. If someone tries to share a confidential document and then they're blocked or warned, they can override it, or you can say, no, that's completely blocked, they can't do it. So you can ramp up the policies to say, how much of an access or how much control are you actually putting over these things. And Microsoft have extended the data loss prevention to the endpoints now. So there is endpoint DLP that works for Windows and Mac, and you can start putting controls around what the endpoints are doing. Because historically, if you printed a document, for example, that wouldn't be covered by the M365 stack. It wouldn't be picked up. Or if someone's trying to copy clipboard data into another location, a notepad file or something that's not controlled, those were all historically big risks. So they've launched endpoint DLP. And what that does is it allows you to use the adaptive data loss prevention tools that they've built, where they'll start applying machine learning and contextual controls over your users. So, for example, if somebody's working on an unregistered device and they're accessing documents and they try and share something, well, that's a risky activity. So you might want to say, okay, we'll put some sensitivity labels on it when people are doing those things, so that those documents are confidential to have it, and only those people who have access to those documents can read them. So if that document does leave the organization, you still have control over it. Or if it's a really risky activity, you know, they start downloading to USB or something like that, you can block that off. So you can be granular with those controls, and also as the context changes, for example, somebody in a marketing department starts working on some financial data, then that context switch is picked up by adaptive DLP, and then tighter controls are put in place around them. So it's a really powerful piece, and it's something that Microsoft's worked incredibly hard to implement. So in summary, and next steps, the most important thing, obviously, that Alex talked about there is good housekeeping. You know, getting the data in order is a really important thing to do. With AI coming, it'll be more and more important, and we've certainly seen use cases where Copilot hasn't worked because of poor data management. The costs associated with poor data management, looking for documents, multiple versions, people searching for documents, not knowing where they are, oversharing, all these costs are massive for an organization, and the associated risks are huge. Having good structure and user guidance training is really, really important, so that users adopt the right working methods and they can really start leveraging the platforms and the benefits they provide, and also giving a positive experience. You know, you want it to be as frictionless as possible, but also using the technology in the back end to enable those users to work in a secure way. So, as I mentioned, zero trust is the fundamentals that Microsoft talks about, by you not trusting any access, and every access to that data is assessed before giving you the correct access. And also the governance piece. You know, this is an evolving landscape, so you need to have the right oversight and thinking about, are things changing within our organization? Is the type of data that we're dealing with changing? And if you were interested, I'll pass over to Alex to talk about an initial audit. Or will I? I'll pass over to him.
Yep, happy to do so. So if you just move on one, please. So we are offering, in collaboration and partnership with WaveX, to do an audit, because as we've already talked about, understanding your data, understanding what you're doing within your organization, where it's stored, what's being used, what isn't being used, is the foundational stone to being able to make sure your data journey is going to be successful. So we are doing a data audit. Here's an example of just one of the pages of the output that gives you some insights as to how many documents, where they're stored. And on the right hand side, you can just see a set of recommendations as part of the report of what we would recommend going to do. So if you're interested in this, I'll hand over to Gavin, because absolutely this is something that where we can help you.
Yeah, no, cheers, Alex, and thank you guys for a very informative presentation. Obviously, you know, everyone wants to get their data organized, and I think one of the biggest things that stops them is the cost of that project and the fear of it's going to create a lot of disruption. Starting with an audit, getting a good idea of the gap from where you are today and where you need to go. But these initiatives can run over multiple years, you know, with some user training. So from this point forward, people are adhering to better rules and better governance, can actually put you over time in a much better place. So that brings us to the end of our dead on half past as well. Well done, guys. That's good pacing. Does anyone have a question? We've had one question through so far. Thank you for jumping on that one, Alex. Does anyone else have any questions? No? Great. I mean, if you want to ping us an email, if there's something that is more specific to your organization that you want to ask that perhaps you're not comfortable asking in a more open forum, feel free. Any feedback you can provide is useful as well. We're always looking for feedback about our webinars to know if there's topics we've missed or there's information you were hoping to get that you perhaps didn't get. But thank you all for spending your lunch break with us. I hope you found the webinar informative. Again, we do these sort of every month covering a range of different areas. So hopefully we see you guys joining us for one of our subsequent webinars. But thank you again, Alex, for joining us, and John for covering over what can be quite complicated topics. I think you guys did a great job of really helping to simplify that. And thank you all again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
See
Bye.
you.